Hello, it's Michelle with Books Cause Insomnia. I'm here today to do my March reading wrap up. If you want to know more about any of these books, I did do a longer review of them in my reading vlog videos. There are two books, though, that I'm going to go a little bit deeper into just because I didn't talk about them in any of my vlog videos. I'm going to get started with my buddy reads. I read Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom with my friend Kristin over at Enter the Book, and we both really enjoyed it. I would say that it's just a nice, good book to read when you want to be reminded about different life lessons and such. I think for me personally, at this point, it's a little bit obvious, and I don't know that it's just not as epic as it was in my early 20s, where these were lessons I hadn't learned yet, and I'm, taking notes and like trying to remember and reading the book over and over again. It didn't have that same intense effect on me, but I did still think it was a good book. And if you haven't read it, I recommend it. If you're looking for a good gift to give somebody in their late teens or early 20s, I really think this is a good one. Then I read the first Library Lover's Mystery by Jenn McKinlay with my friend Deea at Novel Idea. And this book is called Books Can Be Deceiving. We had so much fun with this book. It was really good. It was almost perfect in the cozy world genre. It was almost as good as it gets, except they didn't have a pet in the book, which was weird to me because usually there's always a dog or a cat or a bird or something, but there was no pets, and it really felt like something was missing. But other than that, it was the perfect cozy mystery. The writer writes in a way that I found very cheerful and uplifting, and it was a really nice way to start out my day each morning on just a nice, happy foot. We enjoyed it so much that we decided to read the second book in the series, which was Do or Die. We enjoyed it, but not as much. It was not as good. I would say it was, if you were going to give it stars, I'm not really concentrating on talking about stars as much on here, but if I were to give it stars, this would be a 3-star. It's not as good as the other one, but it's still a very enjoying read. And I think this is going to be a series that I'm going to have to read all the way through because I really like the characters. I really like the writing. It's just a fun setup. The protagonist, Lindsay, lives in this small town on the water in Connecticut, and she's a librarian, and it's just wonderful. I decided to partake in March Mystery Madness. I guess either of the last two books could be considered March Mystery Madness books, but they didn't feel like they met the prompts. The books that I chose that did meet the prompts are Death at La Fenice by Donna Leon. I thought this book was stellar. I loved it. I thought it was so good. If you are a mystery fan and you like a good slow burn book about a detective and maybe somewhere other than America, definitely read this. I loved having it take place in Venice. Also, I loved it being a book about a murder in a theater. There's something about the art world that I just love. It feels like home to me, with me having been a dancer and being a painter now. I tried to read Border Town Girl by John D. MacDonald. I ended up DNFing it because I didn't know this reading the synopsis, but this is a book about the drug world and like heists and stuff like that, and I'm just not into that. I couldn't find it more boring if I tried for some reason. I'm not into bank heists either. I don't know why that is. It's just we all have different prompts that we like, right? And then other ones that are really just not appealing. I wish I knew before I picked it up, but unfortunately that's why I just couldn't get into it. I just don't want to read about heroin and trying to sell it and people stealing it, and that whole thing is just not my thing. I had another DNF. Gone with the Groom by Janice A. Thompson. So this is supposed to be a cozy mystery, although I didn't feel like there was any cozy in there. I'm kind of a snob with cozy mysteries. I've read so many different series and so many different authors that I have a lot of guidelines I expect them to follow. And I didn't feel like this book was following them. And I didn't realize it when I bought it. Not that it would have mattered, but it's a Christian cozy mystery. And I don't mind religion and books, but there was so much in here. I felt like it was more about that than the cozy mystery, which it just came off really preachy. I didn't like that. I wanted to know what was going on with the storyline. And as far as the synopsis on the back, it felt like they weren't really following that storyline a whole lot. There wasn't a lot to the mystery. And after 60 something pages, I just decided I shouldn't have even gone that long, because usually I stop at 50 if I don't like something, but I just couldn't get into it. And then I read After the Funeral by Agatha Christie. And this one I thought was so good. I really loved it. In this book, a guy named Richard passes away, and his family shows up at the, what do you call that? When they reveal the will and who's getting what. And his sister, Cora, makes a remark about how he had obviously been murdered, and everyone knows that, but everybody didn't know that, and they're really shocked. But then the next day, Cora ends up very violently murdered. The estate lawyer decides to have Poirot go out and try to find out what is going on. Was Richard killed, and who killed Cora? And I thought it was really a good, solid mystery. I had a lot of fun with the characters, and I loved that Poirot really struggled trying to figure out what was going on and who did it, instead of in some of the other books where he's kind of a know-it-all who appears to have already solved the crime before the book starts. I liked him a lot more in this book, and I just loved it. It was by far my favorite Agatha Christie so far. I read In Honor of Broken Things by Paul Acampora, and this book has 3 protagonists that are all teenagers, and each chapter is the next kid's viewpoint. So it's constantly shifting between 3 different viewpoints. And it's just a book about 3 kids who are struggling. One of them is a football star who has a sister who just passed away from cancer. One of them just moved to town, and the other one, their parents had just split up, and they are not doing homeschooling anymore. They're going to regular school. I thought it was a good, solid book. It was enjoyable. There was some things that could be improved about it, but I thought it was a nice testament to friendship and what that can mean. If you are into pottery or pottery making or clay or anything like that, you might really like this book. There's a lot of references to it. The 3 protagonists all meet in a pottery class, and that was probably my favorite part of the book. Aside from the friendships, just the pottery and reading about it and how they make things and what they're making. It was a lot of fun. Wish. This was my favorite of the middle grade March books. It was so good. It's about a little girl named Charlie. Her dad goes to prison, and her mom doesn't want to get out of bed anymore, and she is sent to go live with her aunt and her aunt's husband. And here she is in this small town when she's used to a city, and she doesn't have friends, and she's just really struggling, and she does make a friend, and their friendship is beautiful. And she sees this stray dog and decides that she wants to bring the stray dog home. And she ends up getting the stray dog and bringing it home. And it's just such a beautiful book about her, her aunt, her uncle, her new friend, her new dog, her sister who's still back at home living at a friend's house. It was just a really sweet book. The theme of the book is that we all have to try to make the best of the cards that we're dealt in life. How to find blessings in the lives that we have. It was really beautiful. I definitely recommend this book. I also tried to read A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. I did not connect with this book the way that I thought I would. One thing that really grates on my nerves personally is if I read about a child who has an intuition about something and an adult or somebody that they're trying to trust tells them not to trust their intuition, I can't stand that. It drives me nuts. I think it's very dangerous territory. And that happened in this book, and it was really upsetting me. But take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, because there are a lot of people who really love this book and cherish it. And you might really like it too. I just didn't. I also listened to Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus by Dusty Bowling. This book is about a girl named Avon who was born with no arms, and her friend Connor. She meets Connor after moving to a small town in Arizona, and she's just going through a lot, having just moved and trying to get used to a new school and make friends. And I thought it was a really wonderful book, once again, about friendship and also about embracing the cards that were dealt in life and figuring out how to work with those cards and find the blessings within them. I thought it was so good that I wanted to listen to the next book, even though I wasn't considering it a part of middle grade March. So I listened to the next book, which is called Momentous Events in the Life of a Cactus. And in this book, Avon is now entering high school, and she deals with a lot. She deals with bullying. She has her first kiss. She has to start dealing with a little bit more loss than she's dealt with before. And there's some of that teenage angst and the complaining and the whining and stuff in there, but I liked it even more than the first one. I just love Avon's character and who she is and what she's about. And I also really enjoyed reading about what life is like for somebody that doesn't have arms. It's just really fascinating reading how she eats and how she washes her hair and how she gets dressed and all of that. I'm hoping the author comes out with another book about Avon. Then for the Killer Reads book club, I read In the Woods by Tana French. And I thought this was another really good book. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. It's another slow burn book about a detective. Actually, it's about a detective and another detective who he's friends with. And their friendship and the way it's described and the writing with that friendship is amazing. And this detective has a past where when he was a kid, him and some friends went out in the woods one day and disappeared. And he came back, but his other friends have never been found as of when this book starts. And this is really weighing on him mentally, emotionally, physically too, because he has a hard time getting sleep at night. And he's a detective now, and a new murder happens in the town that he grew up in. And it's bringing back all these memories. And he doesn't know if the two cases are connected. It just felt so realistic. It's slow. There's parts that are depressing. There's parts that are funny. I really got attached to Rob, the protagonist. I got attached to his character. He's very tortured, and I just thought it was really well done. Then I listened to books number 2 and 3 in the Desert Plains series by Victor Methos. And those books are Crimson Lake Road and An Unreliable Truth. The first one, what was it called? The Killer's Wife? A Killer's Wife? That whole series of those 3 books is very, very good. I think if you are in a book slump, definitely pick up those 3 books. I thought they were all really good. My favorite one, though, was the last one. I really liked the last one the most. The first one was my next favorite, and the middle one was my third favorite. But I just think it's such a good engrossing series that it would be hard to put down, I think, for anybody that likes a good mystery thriller. It would be good for a reading slump. And then the last 2 books that I want to talk to you about, I did not talk about in any of my reading vlogs. So I wanted to go a little bit deeper into these books and what I thought about them. I listened to and physically read How Lucky by Daniel Leitch. In this book, we follow Daniel. Daniel has SMA, and he spends most of his life in a wheelchair. And he was born with SMA, and his body is basically slowly attacking itself to where he can use less and less of his body as time goes on. And I have to give it to him. I think when a lot of people are in that kind of situation where they have to spend so much of their time in a wheelchair, they just want to be taken care of, right? Not Daniel. Daniel is very independent. He wants to live alone. He wants to have a job. He wants to take care of himself as much as possible. He does have caretakers coming in and out helping him, but he's a lot more independent than I would have imagined. After he gets ready in the morning, he's sitting in his wheelchair and next to a window while he's waiting for his workday to start. And so he's looking out the window and he always sees what's going on out the window every morning. And there's this girl that he's seen every day for a while that appears to be a college student on her way to school. And he doesn't really think a whole lot of it, but then he finds out on the news that this girl has gone missing. And he's wondering, is he the last person to see her? Because somebody was talking to her when he saw her. So he starts looking into what happened to her and trying to get involved and trying to save her. And he's trying to just tell the cops, hey, I think I might have seen her right before she got abducted or something. But the cops aren't listening to him. And that's part of why he starts getting involved and trying to solve it himself, is the cops are ignoring him. I really loved that this book helped me understand spending so much time in a wheelchair and needing to be taken care of so much, but it does it in a way that's not scolding or preachy or anything. I feel like this is another book that really addresses how to find the blessings in our lives in spite of the hand that we are dealt, and accepting the hand that we are dealt. And Daniel has a friend that he has had his whole life, and his friend really does help him out a lot. I loved the friendship that they had. I found this book to be very sweet and endearing and funny and somewhat enchanting. I think Daniel is very easy to get attached to, but the mystery side of the book fell really flat. I don't think that the mystery was very good at all. The last book I want to talk to you about is The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. This was my book of the month selection for March. And in this book, we follow Lena. Lena has a sister who had been murdered, and she wants to know what happened to her. Now, her sister had been into seances, and she wants to talk to her. She wants to find out what's going on. So even though she doesn't believe in seances, she thinks the whole thing is, a crock, she goes and spends time with this lady named Vaudeline, who is in France. And Vaudeline is pretty high up in the seance world. Now, with this being a historical fiction, it was really fun to learn about the Victorian era and seances and how different the world was then. So back then, the London Seance Society, which was an actual society that is still around today, did not allow women in their club. But during this time frame in the 1870s, women were the ones that usually were mediums or that did seances. Women were a lot more popular in this stuff because people thought of women as being more sensitive and more open to hearing spirits and that kind of thing. The head of this London Seance Society ends up being killed. And because Vaudeline is so good at doing seances, she is asked to come out and find out what happened to him. Now, I don't think this is true in real life or now, but in the book, you can only speak to someone in a seance if you're at the place they died at. So they travel back to London to find out what happened to this guy. And they get pretty creative about getting into the club because remember, they're women. They're not supposed to go in there. And there was just a real kind of dark but mystical feel to this book. I found it very enchanting and very interesting. I really enjoyed the mystery too. I thought it was a really good, solid book. I definitely recommend it. Now, there are some lesbian scenes in this book, and I didn't mind them at all, but according to the reviews, it looks like some people really found them off-putting. And I'm not really sure what's so off-putting about that in 2023. That is in this book. There's nothing gratuitous going on or vulgar, but yeah, so if that's something that you don't mind or maybe you enjoy, I definitely recommend this book. So that is everything that I read in March. I had a really good month. I think not doing TBRs for me is working out wonderful. Just doing mood reading is really enhancing and accelerating how many books I read. The only time I know what I'm reading ahead of time is the Killer Book Reads selection of the month. If it's one that I've decided to read, I know I'm going to be reading that. And then if I'm doing any buddy reads, which I don't do a lot of buddy reads though. It turns out today is my 2-year YouTube anniversary with this channel. I can't believe I've been doing it for 2 years now. And I didn't know until today, so I didn't plan anything special, but I did want to thank you for being a part of this channel, for watching this channel. I know a lot of you also have YouTube channels, and a lot of us are friends, and I really appreciate the discussions that we have about books and the friendships that I have formed over these 2 years. And so hopefully the next year will be even better. And thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day or night. Oh, and let me know if you've read any of these, or you want to read any of these, or you have any book recommendations. Happy reading. Bye.